Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Political Insider. I'm Brett Smith, your humble host, and joining me today is a special guest. Gary Collins is a Navy veteran, former federal agent, and currently an entrepreneur who coaches and creates resources and tools for individuals hoping to achieve a simpler life through financial independence, optimal health, and developing a sense of their life's purpose. You can learn more about Gary and keep up with his work through his weekly podcast, The Simple Life with Gary Collins, available wherever podcasts can be downloaded. Gary, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Brett. We had a very interesting pre-conversation.
Yeah, dude. I always like to do that. Get to know the guest. So, I'm curious. Walk us through your time as a federal agent. What department or agency did you work under, and what kind of work did you do?
I had an interesting career. I call it the searching career at the end. But I started off in the military, and long story short, but I've always been very patriotic, love my country, grew up in the middle of nowhere, self-made, started working at 13, in restaurants. I've done every crappy job known to man, put myself through college, got accepted to the Naval Academy, but turned it down because it was to a new prep school they had created. And they told me, and this is all phone, we didn't have answering machines. The guy just calls me up out of LA and goes, "Hey,
right.
You interviewed, what do you think of, you didn't get in Naval Academy, but we'll send you to prep school. You go for a year, and if you fail out, that's it, you're done." And I go, "Wait, so how do I go back into college? I just applied to all these colleges." He's all, "Well, you're going to probably have to reapply and all this." And I went, "No, I don't know about that." And so I went to college and ended up in the military. I ended up in a real bad economy coming out of college. And I always wanted to go in the military. I almost went in the reserves while I was in, but I was already working, so I couldn't do both. And, paying your own bills. I can't be a reservist and have a job and go to college. That's too much. And so I ended up going in enlisted because I'm really dumb. Had a college degree. Guy says, just go in enlisted. Right on, recruiter. Sounds like a great idea. And so went in enlisted, and I went in as a cryptologist. It was a real hard job to get. Ended up briefly trying out for the SEALs in Dive Fair, which was a program they had created. And the instructors talked me out of that. They pulled me aside and go, "Gary, well, we looked at your jacket here." We go, "We don't think this is for you." Very smart two guys too. And then I ended up just going out and it was in the military trying to figure stuff out, and wanted to go into law enforcement, and was putting, back then, nothing was digital. So everything was hand printed. We had this USA Forms, we called them. And it was, I had the 10 discs that I had to load and put this software up, had to fill out my background thing, and you keep all of it, save it, had to print it out, every single application, had to do everything by hand, all the essays, and applied to a bunch of agencies. And I found out about Diplomatic Security Service, State Department, through a coworker in the military. And he goes, "Hey, this looks like what you're kind of into." And I go, "That's funny. I've never heard of these guys." He goes, "Yeah, they're kind of down below. They kind of stay off the radar." And so I applied, and I had a friend gave a package to send it to my friend. He got it, and he wanted to go in law. He applied. He got hired first because I was still in the military.
Okay.
And so ended up putting my application in. Back then, it took about 2 years to get through the process, any process for all federal law enforcement. It was a totally different process than it is now.
And that's just the screening you're talking about?
To get through all of it. Yeah. And you would sit in piles because, again, all this stuff was printed, and we used to laugh. You'd laugh, go, "Well, which pile am I in?" Because once you got up there and I got into federal law enforcement, I'd be in the offices where the hiring was done. You'd walk in there, and it would be stacks of applications all in there, just all over the place. And you just had to be luck. If they were looking for people, they go, they just start pulling from this stack.
Right.
Sometimes it was that lucky. You could be the most qualified. If you were just in bad luck in the wrong stack, you didn't get hired on that cycle. So you'd kind of rotate. Okay. It was a very difficult process. And, you did essays, and I did multiple boards and all kinds of stuff. Physical you'd take physical exams, polygraphs, you name it, just a bunch. And so the State Department finally called me up and said, "Hey, you're hired." And I was making a lot of money in the private sector. And I went, well, I had gotten out of the military, and it was kind of in normal life. And my buddy who got hired at the State Department goes, "Come on, man, do it." So I took a big pay cut, took about back then I took about a $25,000 a year pay cut at least.
Still a big pinch even today.
Yeah, it was, we're talking 30 years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
And no, how old am I? 25.
Yeah, okay. Close.
And so I ended up in the State Department and got a different trial because the military was very different.
Mhm.
And the State Department can have a very, very liberal side to it. It
I
does.
heard.
Yeah. And so your law enforcement side is very different from Main State, as we call it. And even though we had people in my class that were, were on Peace Corps missions and, we had some goofballs, nice people and all, but you look at them and go, why you want to get in law enforcement? You just, I'm a little confused here, and so it was interesting. It's an interesting dynamic though, because it taught me a lot about the inside workings of U.S. politics. I got to get the PhD on that. The military is a little different because you really don't, back then you didn't talk politics. It wasn't really allowed. If you were wearing a uniform and someone heard you running your mouth about the president, someone would come and tell you, shut up, especially a superior. They'd be like, no, we don't do that here.
Interesting.
So it was very, very different. There was no social media. None of that stuff existed. Heck, the internet barely existed. And it changed as time went on. So I am State Department. And I went there. It was after the bombings in Africa. So we had the 2 embassies that got bombed. And so I was part of that hire. I think we were called the Inman hire, if I remember right. And so we were all a group that got picked up on that. And I enjoyed it. But when I interviewed, I said, hey, I've got a bachelor's in criminal justice. I've got a master's in forensics. I want to be an investigator because they do a lot of protection. We did, I did a ton. And I went, I'm not real interested in the protection side. I want to be a criminal investigator. That's what my education's in. And of course the guy's all, no problem, man. You're going to do investigations. You can pick and choose here. I should have known. I should have looked at the contract. Where's the fine print?
Right.
So as soon as I graduate, what do I do all the time? Protection. I mean, literally all over. I'm instantly on flight doing protection. And it was fun. Don't get me wrong. It was fun to do, but we called it monkey work and we called it blood money because it's brutal. It's absolutely really hard on your body, super long hours. I mean, I worked many stints of 45 days straight without a day off. And we're talking, you're on your feet, you're in a suit, you're in a vest, a bulletproof vest, you're in dress shoes. It is hard work. Sure. And it just beats you up and you get a lot of bugs overseas and you lose a lot of weight. Just weird. It's a tough lifestyle. And I remember at the end, I really enjoyed the investigations, but I was like, I'm not doing a lot of investigations.
Yeah.
You'd have to put them on hold. You'd be gone for 4 weeks and your investigation just sits, and your other coworker will work it or just try and keep it going. I went, this isn't what I signed up for. And I wish I would have stayed a little longer because I was going into the tactical team probably. And there was stuff that I had that was going to be cool, but it was weird. I was in my 30s at this point. I'd already been in the military. My body was kind of saying, well, how much of this do you want to do? Well, in my last TDY overseas was in Yemen prior to, it was the USS Cole bombing. And we were part of the team. This is as the cells were developing for 9/11. So all this was going on. And after multiple high threat situations, multiple. And I remember, I extended and I kind of liked it. It was dangerous as shit, but it was fun. I enjoyed it, but certain politics got involved near the end that could have cost us all of our lives and certain things that I won't get into it, but I realized I'm not here to die in a shithole for absolutely no reason. I mean, honestly, that's what I said to myself. I'm not going to do this just to be a corpse for no apparent good.
Yeah.
And it kind of taught me that the politicians don't care. That's kind of what I got the gist of at the end. And I went, I'm going to do something else. I want to be an investigator. Well, a lot of ES people went to HHS for weird, of all things, Health and Human Services, for people who don't know that. Weird that you go from this high speed, low drag job in federal law enforcement, and then a bunch are over at HHS. Well, part of it was, that you were a pure investigator, and it was slow. It was slowing the speed down drastically.
Okay.
I mean, it was hard for me to adapt for a year or two because it was just different.
Right.
But I got to use all my investigative skills finally. Well, that opened me up to the healthcare industry. You see where all this starts to stack of I'm seeing the dirty inside of things that most people don't get to see because I'm jumping around and I'm thinking, we used to call it the grass is greener. And I thought, well, I want to slow down. I want a different life. And I guess what I end up on? The protection team, ran by all DS guys. So I ended up on doing 8 more years of protection. And I was like, God dang it. And at the end, and about 5-7 years, I know it's run long, but it's a weird of how I ended up where I am today. It taught me I did not trust doctors. I did not trust any of the big medical industry. I found it was purely for profit. I saw doctors do terrible, terrible things to human beings in the name of money. Had a doctor putting a multimillionaire doctor putting stents in everyone who walked in his office, to include people 99-year-olds to 30-year-olds, whether they needed them or not. You walked in his office, you got a stent. And anyone knows about stents, once they're in, they're in. You ain't cutting those bad boys out.
Yeah.
Literally ruining people's lives. And just kind of seeing all this kind of go and the career path. And I wanted to get out. And I thought about going back to the public sector. But the problem is you get brainwashed into you have no tangible skills in the private sector anymore.
Right.
I've been in the government at this point so long, I'm all, well, what am I going to do? I know how to investigate. I know how to do protection details. I'm all, okay, I can be a private investigator. I can be private security, work for like Coca-Cola or whatever. And I'm going to be working around all the same people.
It's the same stuff, right?
It's the same stuff in the private sector. And I'm just not wired that way. And I said, you know what? I was almost going to get out. I had my resignation drafted up. I had saved my money, had my house on the market. I was just going to figure it out. I forgot I'd put in a application with the FDA. I got hired. I got hired the day I was turning in my resignation. I haven't told that story very many times. I don't know if I've told it on air ever.
Dumb luck, man.
Yeah,
unreal.
My resignation was on my desk.
How long had you? How long was it before? You sent that application for the FDA. What was like? How many months?
I interviewed and everything. I mean, it was done. I was totally done. It must.
I mean, so long ago that you forgot about it, and then all of a sudden,
it's been probably a year.
What are the odds that it shows up on the day that you're resigning? That's insane.
Yeah, and the thing was, it was a paid move, so they paid for everything. It was a lateral. It was an easy transition because FDA is part of HHS, so it was paperwork wise, it was an easy shuffle. But also at the end, I'd been asked to lie a couple times. And that's what kind of threw me of, I got to get out of this. And I had a couple bosses tell me to falsify reports. I had some bosses falsify reports, and I went, I don't know about this. And I'm a human, I'm imperfect, but I'll tell you what, one thing I never did in law enforcement is I never lied. And I knew that you cross that line, it's over. And I took the job seriously. I took my oath seriously. And I just went, well, I didn't do it. I got on the crap list a little bit, but I went, I'm okay with that. And I decided it was time to move on. And I called it the frying pan in the fire. I ended up at the FDA, and I had all the warnings. Everyone said, the FDA? And I go, how bad can it be? And I was moving back to California, home from where I was from. So it worked out really well for that.
Okay.
It was god awful from the word go. I mean,
so they were right.
They were 100% right.
Okay.
It taught me how corrupt the drug industry is, the pharmaceutical drug industry. It taught me the worst side of the federal government. And I got asked to lie multiple times yet again. And I said, in the end, I had to leave. It's a longer story, but I was one of those things where my health was starting to go like bad.
Sure.
And the day I left, I think I saved my life the day I left.
Yeah.
And I never came back. It was to the point where I was probably going to stroke out that day. I was pretty close on the verge. I was starting to have some serious problems that day. And a boss caught it. He goes, you know what, man? I had a meeting, and the meetings had not been going well. And this was another one. And he just walked up to me and he goes, dude, you need to go home. And I go, I got a meeting. He goes, I'm in it. I'm telling you to go home.
Yeah.
And he probably saved my life. Because he could tell that he caught me in the bathroom, and he goes, are you all right? Like, he walked up to me and goes, are you okay?
Right.
And I went, oh, I think so. Why? And he goes, you don't look good. Like, you you look like something's really wrong. He goes, physically right now, you're not in a good place.
Yeah, right.
And he could just see symptoms that I wasn't seeing.
Hmm.
And that was it. And that was the change of my life where I said, you know what? This stuff isn't worth it. Life's too short. I had spent half my life in the government at that point, and it was scary. I didn't know what to do.
Right.
And I had to kind of go through this whole life transformation where I sold everything, sold my house, short sold it, got rid of everything, and moved into a 475 square foot like studio. And I had sold everything. I mean, literally everything, and downsized and said, I don't care anymore. I just don't care. This stuff and money isn't that important.
Yeah.
I realized I kind of dodged a bit of a bullet in life as far as health and where I was going. I
Mhm.
said, it's time to start over and get back to basics. And I had to sit down and think, when was I the happiest? And I realized growing up poor, I didn't have a lot.
Mhm.
I just didn't. But all of us were poor. It was one of those, wasn't like anyone was killing it. We didn't have any millionaires around.
Right.
So it was one of those, I had my shotgun, my bike, my dog, I had like a baseball mitt, my basketball. And I was a Walkman. And it wasn't even a Walkman. It was a generic one because couldn't afford the real Walkman.
Right.
And that was it. And I go, I think that's when I was my happiest. When things were just basic. I grabbed the dog shotgun. I'd walk across the street and I'd go hunting every day. I went, I think that's what I need to get back to.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
plotted this whole thing, and I ended up building the house, buying 20 acres in Northeast Washington, and built a house off the grid. And not crazy. Like, people confuse me for, nothing against them, preppers and all that
Sure.
good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not. I'm just a rational human being trying to live my best life. And so I did it, built it, and learned a lot of lessons. And that's what I've been doing ever since, and created a company based on health, more
Mhm.
holistic health, evolved into the simple life because I realized I was on a journey of life simplification. And that's like I said, who could have, I would have never guessed. If you were to ask me when I got out of the government and go, what would you be doing? I wouldn't have guessed this.
Yeah. Right.
But I let life kind of take me in the direction organically, is the best way to put it. I let life kind of take its course instead of forcing things, instead of listening to, what people were telling me I need to do. I said, well, what's going to make me happy? What's going to fulfill me? And that's what I did. I pursued that, and I realized, oh, Jesus Christ, my grandfather always said, do something that makes you happy. I thought he was just telling me that.
On your podcast, you've discussed in the past why the American public should be skeptical of the political influence that sways much of federal law enforcement and intelligence communities, especially over the last 20 years, as the bureaucracy has the deep state. It's grown so much. Do you believe this recent raid on former President Trump was a political show of force by this bureaucracy or this deep state?
It's interesting. And for me, I left during, I'll be honest, hey, I've gotten more political over the last couple of years. I've been out a long time, but I left during the second year of Obama, which is ironic because me and Dan Bongino left at exactly the same time, I think.
Right.
The same reasons. We saw where the direction of the country was going, and that we were watching the deep state grow, and it scared the crap out of me. Too. I mean, all those stressors were all involved of watching this kind of going after political enemies. And also, I talked about this a couple times on interviews about how Obama came in and he said, we're going to be the most open, and whistleblowers are going to be coveted, right? We're going to protect the whistleblowers. Well, they did the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Anyone who said anything, I mean anything, would be fired, or you would be in deep trouble. To include, we watched it roll down to the street agent, where you were watching what you were saying and doing. That's how these guys had infiltrated everything. And you realized if you said something bad about Obama or one of his cabinet level people or anything, and the wrong person heard it and it traveled, you were going to get fired. I mean, I knew people low level got canned because they let their opinions out. And I went, we are in a different world. I went, never seen this before. I went, it's scaring the crap out of me. It's time to go. And kind of watching on the outside now because I still know people who are in, most people have left now that I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But watching this and watching it develop, and remember, I was in the intel community in the military too. I had a top secret clearance pretty much my entire career. So I got to see and read and understand things a little differently and deal with these people. I mean, I was around them. I was on a detail with Fauci back in the day. He was overseas on a Tommy Thompson detail I was on.
Mhm.
That was a douche. I mean, I'll be honest with you. And the head of the CDC back then, I can't remember her name. Was it Julie something? Harbading or something? I can't remember. She was wicked.
Yeah.
I'm wicked. And I remember walking away going, we're in trouble. There's problems. Things have changed. And coming out and kind of taking a step back and kind of going on my own journey and getting away from it, because I've only started doing these more political interviews and things in the last couple of years. I tried to avoid it.
Sure.
But we've gotten to a point where I've got to say what's got to be said.
Well, I
at this
think
point.
if we're going to conserve anything, a semblance of the world that you and I were born into, and we're roughly the same age, I think we got to start speaking up.
You don't want to be a target. I've worked too hard in my
Yeah.
life and I've done too much. The last thing I want to do, and it's not cowardly, it's just how much sacrifice do I got to make? How many times you can only get your head cut off once.
Right.
I'm trying to avoid that in a way, but I'm trying to also affect change. And this is the simple life. And what I developed was my way of doing it.
Mhm.
I thought this is the way to be more effective, not running for Congress for me. I've already done all this stuff.
Right.
How much torture do you have to put me through before?
Yeah, I'd say you've worked for Fedzilla enough.
Enough. And you just kind of figure where the power is, where you can affect more change.
Sure.
And watching all this go down, and I've never been, I know this may shock people, I was never a big Trump guy.
Mhm.
Just wasn't. It wasn't that I don't like the guy. He's not my flavor. That's all.
Sure, that's cool.
But did I not vote for him? I'll be honest with you, I didn't vote for him. And did I vote I didn't vote at all. Because I also came to a point where I said, A, I'm in Washington. It didn't matter. But B, I'm tired of holding my nose for the better of the worst candidate.
Sure.
How about you give me something to vote for? I was a Herman Cain guy and a Rand Paul guy.
Yeah. Great
Those
guys.
were my, once they were out, I'm all, well, who am I going to vote for? Ben Carson. I loved him too.
Yeah, it's great. Great guy.
And so I thought, well, we had much better, candidates. Well, this isn't what I wanted. But now I've changed my tune.
Sure.
I'm in. I mean, I want a wrecking ball. I want someone to light stuff on fire. I think he learned his lesson on the first one. And here's why I know why it's politically motivated. Of course it is.
Mhm.
I said when he got elected, I was talking to friends. I go, if he doesn't walk in there and give out at least 2,000 to 3,000 pink slips immediately, he's in trouble. And they go, why? I go, because he's not a politician. And he said some things that's going to piss people off. And I go, Obama, when, I already know this firsthand, he had infiltrated every cabinet level office there was. He made sure he planted people in everywhere.
Mhm.
And I said, if you don't get rid of these people, they're going to bury him.
And those people that Obama hired, they're hiring people, and
Yes.
they're stacking it with people like them and like Obama. So that's how you end up with this cultural rot within agencies and institutions like the FBI,
Well, and not only that, but you had the rhinos. Then you have the rhinos in there.
because they're
Then you
sympathetic. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you have, these war hawks that are in there. You got the military industrial complex. He talked about cutting all the military waste fraud. You want to light a fire and piss a bunch of people off.
Yeah.
That's going to do it. And I said, I just kind of felt, I went, he's in for it. He just walked in there blind. He thought this was a business and that these are all patriots. He's looking from the outside in. I go, there's a lot of bad people in there. Another problem we have, and I've watched this obviously firsthand in the government too, is no one ever gets punished.
Right.
It's only the pawns. It's only the low level people that get punished. All these, lifelong politicians, and we need term limits. I mean, anyone who's in politics over 70, I don't even understand. I can't rationally understand that to begin with. I mean, don't you know how to use a fishing pole or maybe go on a vacation? I mean,
I know.
you
I know. It's like a deck chair with these guys' name on it somewhere,
right? And because I always give this example, and as an 1811 criminal investigator, special agent, your mandatory retirement age was 57.
Mhm.
Period. You hit 57, you're out.
Right.
Can you go get another job in the government? Non-18. Yeah, but no one hardly ever did. Everyone's all, I'm out.
Right.
And so we have to retire at 57, but we can have people pushing 100. Wasn't it, oh, what, I'm
It's
trying
like
to remember.
Strom Thurmond and these
Tom
guys
Thurman,
just go
he was
forever.
99 or
Yeah.
something, or
I mean,
something.
like wheeling them in, man. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
like,
And I'm all, no, 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 no. And so the search warrant, I still I'm a DeSantis guy. I've
mhm,
moved DeSantis, said I like him, former Navy guy,
yeah,
former Navy guy,
great
like,
guy.
says the right things and does the right things.
Yeah.
But now after this search warrant, I changed my mind in a way. I want a DeSantis Trump ticket, but I want Trump to go in with nothing to run for again
Yeah.
and burn the place down. Well, and with the search warrant, and a guy who did these, I mean, I used to do these, and I watched
Mhm.
the process and what they did, and I went, "Oh, that's dirty to the core." I
Yeah,
went,
dude.
"That is." I go, "That even the way that they shopped it." And we did. We called it shopping. If you wanted to get a case prosecuted, sometimes you have to shop it,
Mhm.
and good or bad. And sometimes you could be in an office with a bunch of deadbeat prosecutors, and you'd have to shop it around, try and get someone to take your case. But judge shopping, that's a whole nother deal. That's a whole nother level. When you have to go judge shop to get a search warrant signed, you're already starting off on a premise of dishonesty
Yeah.
already. I never shopped a warrant ever. They always think they're on the right side and that people are just going to cower over and go,
No.
Orange man bad. Yeah. Instead, they got, what have you done? Oh my God. And hiring 86,000 IRS agents? What?
In the same week, man. All that came down in the
All that
same
came out.
week.
And I worked with IRS CID. I
Mhm.
worked with auditors. I know these people very well. I worked many cases with them, financial cases. 86,000? No. No, 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 no. Because they're 1811s. The CID people are 1811, so they have to carry a gun. So I wasn't as shocked with the use of deadly. That's part of the description of an 1811.
Right.
But they mixed it all together. They pooled it as if everyone has to be okay with taking someone's life over, a PayPal transaction
Yeah.
that they didn't claim. It's 86,000 to go after the billionaires.
And there's only what, 1,000 billionaires?
Yeah, even the math is bad, right? Well, none of it makes any sense, and then you throw in the search warrant on top of it.
Yeah.
All you can conclude is evil intent. I mean, that's all I can come up with now. It's like, I don't believe anything you're telling me. I want to see the affidavit, and I want it unredacted. I want the entire thing. There's no reason, if your case is that strong, you can't release this to the public. This is a former president
Yeah.
and probably the next running for president again. You need to make that information public.
A lot of Republicans are now calling for to abolish the FBI, to break it up. Um, there's that classic video of Ron Paul that's been circulating from, I think, the 80s, just talking about what a how bad what a bad track record they have and how wrong they've been.
And you're
Um,
talking to a guy who worked in it, and it was
right.
hard. Some of these were hard pills for me to swallow because I didn't agree with it, and I didn't agree with a lot of things. And I kind of
Well, and you're
caught.
not in charge. I mean, you're
No,
in a
I'm
lot of
not
ways. I
the
mean, you're
worker.
along for the ride, dude. So it's just like, you witness this stuff, and there's not much you can really do about it.
No, and that was part of the leaving too, is when I realized I was powerless. Once I
Yeah.
was gone, I went, they're never even going to notice I was gone. I mean, that's where you kind of come to this conclusion of this job that you work so hard for, the getting through the processes to get hired, the academies, all this training, everything you've done, all the cases and traveling and sicknesses and away from family and birthdays and deaths and now all this. And at the end you go, I didn't make it. Did I even make a difference at all?
Yeah.
And it kind of dawns on you, no. And that's where for me, I went, I've got to go about this differently, about change, because what I'm doing isn't working.
Yeah.
But also realizing that I got myself in hot water at the end too, because I didn't think the FDA needed to exist. After being in it, I went, I don't think this agency really needs to be around. And
Yeah.
I voiced my opinion on a few agencies that I said, I don't agree with. I always thought the FBI was too big. I didn't think they had the stats to back up their numbers. And I thought a lot of agencies, people don't understand how many federal law enforcement agencies are. I think there's like 37. There might be more now. You've
Mhm.
got housing and urban development. You've got NASA. You've got education. They all have criminal investigators, gun-toting FDA, we were fully armed. I carried a 357 for God's sakes in the FDA. And I used to laugh. I go, God dang, what am I going to shoot, a farmer?
Right.
You know, and all these agencies that are out there that you go, what?
Yeah.
What are we doing? And I firmly believe, even when DHS was formed, I said, no. I go, that doesn't make any sense, because I worked with Border Patrol, Customs, and INS, CID when they were separate. And
Right.
they very specific functions separately.
All these Republicans calling to abolish the FBI. Could you abolish the FBI?
Yes.
It's possible.
Yes. You defund it. You can put out any agency, especially any cabinet level agency, by defunding it.
Mm-hmm.
You just fail to give them money.
Yeah.
And you divert it. And that's what I always meant is,
it's how they ended the Vietnam War. They just cut the spigot off. You know,
you just get the money off. That's anything that's what pisses me off about these politicians who say, we can't do anything. We can't get rid of Obamacare. Yes, you can. You defund it. Right. You instantly stop funding it. So by me following my own journey and then creating a health company to help people, when I first started, it was one-on-ones, and my main clients that I was working with were football players trying to get into major colleges through a sports agent, former Green Bay Packer.
Wow.
And so I was doing that, and I really enjoyed it. But what happened is, with the normal clients, like the football players were really disciplined. They were easy to teach, right? But my normal clients were a shipwreck. I mean, it was all over the place. And I noticed that I ended up giving them a lot more than health advice. It was always, well, we're broke. I don't know if I can pay you. And it always ventured in, or I'm depressed. I hate my life. And it always got into these other deeper concepts. And I was going through them too myself.
Yeah, right.
But when you're doing one-on-ones, you end up repeating yourself a lot. Because it's a different client. So I went, I need to write this stuff down. So I started writing all the health stuff down. It started like a 30-page little printed booklet, turned into 50 pages. Next thing I know, someone goes, you should probably write a book about this. So I go, okay, I'll write just a simple book for people to follow. It was a total pile of crap. They're still floating out there. I've got followers who've been following me from the beginning. They go, I got one of your first books. I go, oh, burn. Horrible. Had it done at some cheap printer in LA.
It start somewhere, man. It's
god awful cover, typos, the whole bit. And what happened though is I sold a decent amount of them. I threw them on Amazon, not bestseller or anything like that, but more than I expected. People liked the information, and I went, okay. So I upgraded that. And as I'm doing this, I sold my place. I transitioned into my RV after a while, living in an RV, and all this stuff's going on. I changed my health, changed everything, dialed everything in, became financially free, found my life purpose, a huge portion of it.
That's a big one.
And so once I've kind of pieced this, I'm teaching this stuff, and I end up speaking. I had created the 5 principles of Primal Power method back then, because it was the health company. And the first one's knowledge is power. 2, avoid extremes. 3, keep it simple. 4, something is better than nothing. 5, take action today and every day. Really good. But I realized those were converting into life philosophy.
Very much.
They were intended for health, but I realized, these kind of apply. And I was
they crossover. Yeah.
I started doing public speaking at the Mother Earth News fairs, and I was speaking on health and living off the grid. And I would do the principles, and I would start talking about the lifestyle. And I noticed that people were getting lost. I was losing people. And I'm like, the 5 principles, God dang, those are pretty simple to me. But they weren't. I realized unpacking them, there was a lot there. Once I unpacked them and I got into everything. So I just started realizing, I need to simplify this down even more. And it's part of the philosophy I was developing in my life. So I actually wrote these down. I was in my hotel room, and I went, what are the 3 key points of what I teach? And it came the 3-legged stool: optimal health, financial freedom, find your life purpose. And I took it out there and I pitched it. I saw nothing but light bulbs go off. And I went, holy shit, I'm an idiot. I went, I've been teaching this all wrong. I went, the principles, everything is solid, but I've overcomplicated it. I need to break it down to its basic elements. And that from there on out, I've been teaching that ever since. And then it evolved into realizing that I was teaching a 3-legged stool of freedom. Because once you take those back, I always tell people, these are the things we have willingly given government control over that they didn't even have to twist our arm. We just
Right.
gave them. We gave it to
Right.
the corporations. We gave it to the government. We just said, I want to make these decisions. It's too complicated. Yeah, give me the 30-year loan on a $750,000 house that I can't afford. No problem. I'll do it. You know what I mean? And we just willingly went along because we're brainwashed that the American dream is consumerism. We need to make more money and consume more things. Well, it never fills that void of happiness or unhappiness.
Mhm.
I had to learn that. The simple things make me happy in life. You know, getting my hands dirty, being physically active, being a better person,
Mhm.
teaching. These are my strengths. So I follow them. And so that's where it all came about. I mean, it's completely accidental is the irony of
That's
everything.
awesome.
But it evolved on me finding my life purpose. What is my purpose after the government? I had to figure it out. I don't know. We have a problem in America is we're getting the wrong advice from the wrong people.
Mhm.
And we, you know, these celebrities, I say if the worst place for you to get life advice is celebrities.
Yeah.
Ignore them. I did protection details. They're around everyone. I did the Dalai Lama multiple times. They were everywhere. These people are nuts. Britney Spears was a whack bag back then.
Still is.
All these people, I was around them. They're crazy.
Yeah.
And yet they're spouting their mouth telling you how you should live your life. No. Don't listen to them. You need to be listening to Gertrude down the road who raised 3 kids, scraped pennies, and put them through college with her and her husband who's a plumber. That's who you need to be listening to.
Yeah.
You need to be listening to the people who do shit and accomplish things, not deadbeats who got there by being there and pretending to be someone else. No. And that's kind of what I teach is the answers are right in front of you.
Mhm.
You just need to go do it. And I have another philosophy that I teach in everything I do. You need to have a plan. You need to organize the plan. You need to execute the plan. You do those 3 things. And I tell it to myself as I'm building things. I'm all in the plan. I write it down. I put out my little blueprint. I organize it on how I can accomplish it. Then I execute it.
Yeah.
It may not work, but I got it done. And now I can pivot. Now I can change. Now I can do it again. And most people today just want to skip that whole step and they go, I just want it done. I just want it. Life doesn't work that way. You think our ancestors and tribes trying to, you know, move the human, this whole human organism forward, sat around going, wonder what the Kardashians are doing right now.
Well, you got the books, and then you got the podcast, and you've also got courses as well.
Yeah, and the courses I've been working on, because courses are hard. They're hard to build. And I'm trying to build a Simple Life University, like a couple courses I have planned. How to buy a car without getting ripped off.
Mhm.
How to buy a house.
Yeah.
I mean, because I realize that I'm teaching concepts that I've been doing for a long time to me that are second nature.
Mhm.
But trying to explain amortization on a loan and front loading to an everyday American, they're like, what?
Yeah, now.
And once you break the numbers out, you go, this is what you're paying. You know, that $1,000 payment you're paying, that's cheap today.
Double. Yeah.
3,000. Well,
Yeah.
$2,100 of that's interest, right?
I know. Yeah.
You're making 0 dent in the principal.
Right.
And explain to people that and how cars work. And I go, if you understand the game, you can win the game.
Yeah.
If you don't understand how the game's played, you're just a sucker at the poker table. That's all you are. You're a mark. And they're treating us as marks. Would you disagree?
I totally agree. I think they want us less and less prepared, you know, less likely to survive on our own, less likely to think on our own. Once you give everyone your social media coordinates and let everyone know where they can check out The Simple Life and find your podcast and everything.
Go to Rumble, look up The Simple Life with Gary Collins. And then the main place to go, I'm on Twitter. It's, what is it? I think it's The Simple Life Now or Simple Life Now.
Okay.
At Life Now. Just look up Gary Collins Simple Life Now. I go on there and throw flames here and there. I'm not real in it. I'm not going to give you long-winded comments or any. I'm not going to battle you. I don't deal with bots. I block anyone who pisses me off. But if you want to follow me on there, I do some good memes and stuff. But the website's the home. I mean, I built that thing. It houses everything. TheSimpleLifeNow.com. That's where everything.